The knife left his hand without warning. No build-up. No threat. Just the flash of silver spinning through the air of the Grand Hannock Hotel's private dining room, blade over handle, crossing 12 feet in less than a second. Everyone froze. The 5 men in dark suits standing against the mahogany walls. The manager halfway through pouring wine. The chef visible through the kitchen window. Everyone except her. Naomi Carter's hand moved before her mind caught up. 2 fingers, index and middle, closing around the blade mid-flight. The metal kissed her skin but didn't cut. Perfect pressure. Perfect angle. The knife stopped. Silence crashed into the room like a physical thing. Park Tae-jin sat motionless at the head of the table, his expression unreadable. 42 years old, dressed in a charcoal Tom Ford suit that cost more than most Seoul apartments. His hands rested calmly on the white tablecloth, as if he hadn't just thrown a weapon at a woman's face. But his eyes told a different story. They'd gone from cold amusement to something else. Something sharp and calculating. Naomi lowered the knife slowly, deliberately, and placed it on the serving tray with a soft clink. Her hand didn't shake. Her breathing didn't change. "Your appetizer, sir," she said in perfect Korean, her accent flawless, her tone professional. Then she met his gaze. And held it. The room held its breath. One of Tae-jin's men, a stocky enforcer named Kong, stepped forward, hand moving toward his jacket. But Tae-jin raised one finger. Just one. Kong stopped. Tae-jin leaned back in his chair, studying this woman who'd just done the impossible. American, mid-20s, hair pulled back in a neat bun, the hotel's standard black uniform pressed and spotless. A waitress who caught knives like she'd been trained for it. "What's your name?" he asked quietly. "Naomi Carter." "How long have you worked here?" 3 months. "And before that?" She paused. Just a fraction of a second, but he caught it. "I worked in Atlanta. Various hospitality positions." Lie. He knew lies the way others knew breath. Tae-jin stood, slowly, each movement controlled. He walked around the table, closing the distance between them. His men tensed, but he waved them off. He stopped 2 feet from Naomi, close enough to see the flecks of gold in her brown eyes. Close enough to notice something else. On her left wrist, just visible beneath her sleeve, was a birthmark. Small, crescent-shaped, dark against her skin. His chest tightened. "Impossible." "Show me your wrist," he said. "Sir." "Your left wrist." "Show me." Naomi hesitated, then slowly pulled back her sleeve. The birthmark was identical to his. Same shape, same size, same position. Hidden beneath his own sleeve, beneath layers of silk and lies, was a mirror image. The room tilted. Tae-jin had seen that mark on only one other person in his life. 26 years ago. On a woman named Sarah Carter, a jazz singer from Atlanta who'd spent one summer in Seoul, who'd looked at him like he could be something other than what his blood demanded. A woman who disappeared without explanation, leaving only silence and a scar he'd buried so deep he'd almost forgotten it existed. Almost. "Where is your mother?" The question came out rough. Naomi's expression didn't change, but something flickered behind her eyes. "Dead. Breast cancer. 4 years ago." The word hit him like a physical blow. Her name. Why does it matter? Her name. Naomi lifted her chin. Sarah Elizabeth Carter. The room disappeared. 26 years of carefully constructed control shattered in 3 words. Tae-jin returned to his seat like a man walking through water. His movements were slow, deliberate, but his mind was racing. Sarah. God, Sarah. The men in the room exchanged glances. They'd worked for Park Tae-jin for years, seen him order executions without blinking, watched him dismantle rival organizations with surgical precision. They'd never seen him shake. "Everyone out," Tae-jin said quietly. Kong frowned. "Sir." "Out. Now." They left. Even the manager. Even the chef. The door closed with a soft click, and suddenly it was just the two of them in a room designed for intimidation, surrounded by silence that felt like a living thing. Naomi stood perfectly still, tray still in hand, waiting. "Sit," Tae-jin said, gesturing to the chair across from him. "I'm working." "Sit." She set down the tray and sat, back straight, hands folded in her lap. The knife sat between them on the table, a reminder of the impossibility that had just occurred. Tae-jin pulled up his left sleeve, exposing his own wrist. The birthmark stared back at them both. "My mother told me about you," Naomi said finally. "She said you were young. 21, maybe 22. She said you worked in your family's business, but you never told her what that business was. She never asked. She knew better than to ask." Tae-jin's jaw tightened. "If she told you about me, why are you here? Why now?" "Because she also told me I had a choice. To stay in Atlanta and wonder, or to come to Seoul and find out who my father really was." The word hung between them. "Father." "She never told me she was pregnant," Tae-jin said, and for the first time in decades, his voice carried something other than command. It carried pain. "She didn't tell anyone. She left Seoul before she started showing. Raised me alone." "Why?" Naomi's eyes hardened. "Because 3 days before she was going to tell you, 2 men in suits showed up at her hotel room. They gave her $50,000 in cash and a plane ticket to Atlanta. They told her if she ever contacted you, if she ever came back to Korea, they would kill her and the baby both." Tae-jin's hands curled into fists on the table. "What did they look like?" "She never said. Just that they worked for your family." "Of course they did." His father had been alive then, running the Park Empire with an iron fist and zero tolerance for anything that threatened the bloodline. An American jazz singer pregnant with his grandson would have been unacceptable. So they'd made her disappear. Made her choose between love and survival. "Why didn't she tell me this when you were born? Why wait until she was dying?" Naomi's expression softened slightly, just enough to reveal the grief underneath. "Because she was protecting you. And protecting me. She said your world was dangerous. That bringing me into it would destroy us both. She was right. Maybe. But she's gone now, and I'm here, and I needed to know." Naomi leaned forward. "I needed to see if the man she loved still existed, or if he'd become exactly what his family wanted him to be." The question was a blade sharper than the knife. Tae-jin had spent 26 years building an empire on fear and control. He'd eliminated rivals, corrupted officials, expanded operations across 3 countries. The Park family name meant power. It meant untouchable. It meant he'd become everything Sarah had feared. "The knife," he said quietly. "Where did you learn to do that?" "Marine Corps. 6 years. 2 tours in Iraq, 1 in Afghanistan. Combat training, close quarters combat, knife defense." He stared at her. "You're a soldier." "I was. Now I'm a waitress trying to figure out if my father is worth knowing." Before Tae-jin could respond, his phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen and his expression darkened. Kang's message was simple: "We have a problem. Min-jae knows about the girl." Min-jae. His younger brother. The one who'd been circling Tae-jin's position for years, waiting for weakness. And weakness had just walked into his life wearing a waitress uniform. 26 years earlier, Seoul pulsed with a different rhythm. Park Tae-jin was 21, fresh from university in London, drowning in family expectations and the weight of a legacy he'd never wanted. His father groomed him for violence. His mother mourned the son she'd lost to ambition. He escaped to music. The Blue Note Jazz Club in Itaewon became his refuge. Dark corners, imported whiskey, and sounds that reminded him there was a world beyond blood and obligation. That's where he saw her. Sarah Carter stood on stage in a midnight blue dress, her voice wrapping around standards like silk around steel. She sang Billie Holiday, Nina Simone, Etta James. Songs about love and loss and survival. She sang like someone who understood that beauty and pain were the same thing. He went back every Thursday for a month before he worked up the courage to speak to her. "You're good," he said after her set, awkward in a way he'd never been in business meetings. She smiled. "You're Park Tae-jin, owner's son. You sit in the corner and order Macallan meat. You never talk to anyone. You noticed." "I notice everything." They talked until dawn. Then they did it again the next night. And the next. For 6 months, they built something fragile and real in the spaces between his family obligations and her visa expiration date. She taught him to see Seoul through fresh eyes. He showed her corners of the city tourists never found. They fell in love the way young people do. Desperately, completely, without counting the cost. Then she missed her period. He remembered the night she told him. They were in his car, parked overlooking the Han River, city lights reflecting on the water like scattered stars. "I'm pregnant," she said simply. His heart stopped. Then restarted differently. "We'll figure it out," he said. "I'll tell my family. We'll make it work." She looked at him with eyes that knew better. "Your family will never accept me. You know that." "I don't care." "You should." But he'd meant it. For 3 days, he'd meant it with everything he had. Then she disappeared. He searched everywhere. Her apartment was empty. The club owner said she'd gone back to America. No forwarding address. No goodbye. His father found him drunk in that same car, staring at that same river. "The American is gone," his father said. "It's better this way. Now you can focus on what matters." Tae-jin had believed him. Believed she'd left because she didn't want the life he offered. He'd never imagined she'd been driven away. Naomi studied her father's face as the memory played behind his eyes. "She never stopped loving you," Naomi said quietly. "Even at the end. She kept one photo. You and her at Bukshan Hanok village. She was wearing a yellow dress." Tae-jin's eyes closed. He remembered that day. Autumn sun, traditional houses, Sarah laughing at something he'd said. He'd kept the same photo in a locked drawer for 26 years. "What do you want from me?" he asked. "The truth. About who you are. About whether the man my mother loved still exists." "He doesn't." "Then why are your hands shaking?" Tae-jin looked down. She was right. For the first time in decades, his control was slipping. His phone buzzed again. This time, a call. He answered. Hyung Min-jae's voice was smooth, dangerous. "I hear you have a visitor. An American waitress with interesting reflexes. This doesn't concern you. Everything that threatens this family concerns me. Especially illegitimate children appearing from nowhere." Tae-jin's grip tightened on the phone. "Stay away from her." "Or what?" "You'll protect her. The way you protected that singer 26 years ago." A pause. "Father's men weren't as subtle as they thought. I was 17. I remember." The call ended. Naomi watched Tae-jin's expression harden into something cold and lethal. "What's happening?" "My brother knows about you. That makes you a target. I can handle myself. Not against this." He stood. "You're leaving Seoul. Tonight. I'll arrange everything. I'm not running. You don't understand what's at stake." Naomi stood too, matching his intensity. "I understand perfectly. Your brother sees me as a weakness. A way to hurt you. But I didn't come here to hide. Then why did you come? To see if you were worth fighting for. The words landed between them like a challenge. Before Tae-jin could respond, the dining room door exploded inward. 4 men in dark suits flooded in, weapons drawn, moving with military precision. But these weren't Tae-jin's men. They were Min Jae's. Naomi moved on instinct, grabbing the knife from the table, positioning herself between the threat and her father. Years of combat training rewired her civilian disguise into something lethal. Tae-jin stepped forward, blocking her. Stand down. The lead enforcer, a man with a scar across his jaw, smiled. Min Jae wants the girl. Just the girl. No one needs to die today. Then you should leave, Tae-jin said quietly. Hyung wants this handled quietly. Don't make it messy. What happened next took 3 seconds. Naomi threw the knife. Not at the enforcer, at the chandelier's support chain. The blade severed the link with surgical precision. 2,000 pounds of crystal and steel crashed down between them and Min Jae's men, creating a wall of chaos. She grabbed Tae-jin's arm. Back exit. Now. They ran. Behind them, gunfire shattered what remained of the chandelier. Bullets punched through mahogany and silk. The hotel erupted into screaming panic. Tae-jin and Naomi burst through the kitchen, scattering cooks and waiters. The service exit led to an alley, dark and narrow. A black Mercedes screeched to a stop. Kong behind the wheel. Get in. They dove into the back seat. The car accelerated before the doors fully closed. Where? Kong asked. Tae-jin's mind raced. Not his penthouse. Min Jae would have it surrounded. Not any of the usual safe houses. His brother knew them all. He looked at Naomi, really looked at her. This woman who'd crossed an ocean to find him, who'd caught a knife meant to intimidate her, who'd just saved his life with reflexes that spoke of battlefields and hard choices. His daughter. The old compound, Tae-jin said. Gangnam. No one's used it in 15 years. Kang's eyes met his in the rearview mirror. Sir, that place isn't secure anymore. It's the last place Min Jae will look. Go. The Mercedes merged into Seoul's traffic, disappearing into a river of lights and steel. In the back seat, Naomi finally allowed herself to breathe. Your family is trying to kill me, she said. Yes. Just like they tried to kill my mother. Yes. And you're going to stop them. Tae-jin looked at her, this stranger who carried his blood and his mark in Sarah's eyes. Yes, he said. Even if I have to burn everything I've built to do it. If stories about choosing family over power move you, you're in the right place. Because the next choice Tae-jin makes will cost him everything. The old compound sat in shadows, a relic from when the Park family had been smaller, hungrier, less visible. 2 stories of concrete and steel, tucked behind newer buildings that had grown up around it like weeds. Inside, dust covered everything. Tae-jin moved through rooms filled with ghosts. His father's old office. His mother's garden, now overgrown and wild. The training room where he'd learned to fight, to kill, to lead. Naomi followed silently, reading the space the way soldiers read terrain. You grew up here, she said. Until I was 12. Then we moved to the estate in Hanam-dong. He paused in the doorway of a small bedroom. This was mine. The room was frozen in time. Posters of soccer players. Books in Korean and English. A desk still holding pencils and notebooks. Naomi stepped inside, studying the fragments of a childhood that had ended too soon. Did you want this life? She asked. No one asks what we want. We're born into it. That's not an answer. Tae-jin turned to face her. I wanted to be normal. I wanted to study literature, maybe teach. I wanted a life where people looked at me and didn't see my father's empire behind my eyes. What changed? My father died. And someone had to keep the family from tearing itself apart. So you became him. The words were gentle, but they cut. Yes, Tae-jin admitted. I became exactly what he wanted me to be. Because the alternative was watching everything he built collapse, and the people depending on us destroyed in the chaos. Naomi sat on the dusty bed. My mother used to say something. She said the hardest thing about loving you wasn't that you were dangerous. It was that you couldn't see you had a choice. She was right. Was she? Naomi met his eyes. Because it seems to me you've been making choices your whole life. You just convinced yourself they were inevitable. Before Tae-jin could respond, Kong appeared in the doorway. Sir, we have movement. Min-jae's people found us. Tae-jin's jaw tightened. How many? At least a dozen. They're setting up a perimeter. Naomi stood, her military bearing reasserting itself. Exits. 2. Front and service entrance in the back. Both will be covered within minutes. Then we need to move now. Tae-jin shook his head. No. We stay. Both Kong and Naomi stared at him. Sir. Running makes me look weak. Weak is what Min-jae wants. He's trying to prove I can't protect what's mine. Tae-jin's expression hardened. It's time we had a different conversation. He pulled out his phone and dialed. Min-jae answered on the first ring. Hyung. I have the compound surrounded. Send out the girl, and this ends quietly. No. Then I come in. And people die. You're welcome to try, Tae-jin said calmly. But before you do, ask yourself a question. What happens to the organization if you kill me? Who takes control? The old families? The Chinese connections we've spent decades building? How long before everything fractures? Silence on the line. You need me alive, Tae-jin continued. Just like I needed father alive. The difference is, I've spent 20 years building loyalty you can't match. You want my position? Earn it. But going after my daughter isn't strategy. It's desperation. She's leverage. She's family. And you just declared war on family. How does that look to the men you need on your side? More silence. Calculating silence. This isn't over, Min-jae said finally. No. But it's changing shape. Meet me tomorrow. Neutral ground. We settle this the right way. And the girl? Is none of your concern. Tae-jin ended the call. Kong exhaled slowly. Sir, that was a gamble. I know. Tae-jin looked at Naomi. He'll pull back for now. But tomorrow, we need to end this permanently. The meeting took place at dawn. A warehouse in Incheon, neutral territory, empty except for the two brothers and their closest advisors. Min-jae arrived with confidence and calculation in his eyes. Tae-jin arrived with Naomi at his side. This is a family matter, Min-jae said. She doesn't belong here. She's the reason we're here, Tae-jin replied. So she stays. They sat across from each other at a metal table, two men who shared blood and nothing else. You want power, Tae-jin began. I understand. I wanted it once, too. But power in this world comes with a cost, and I'm done paying it. Min-jae leaned forward. What are you saying? I'm stepping down. Officially. The organization is yours. Silence crashed through the warehouse. What's the catch? Min-jae asked suspiciously. No catch. I'm moving to legitimate operations. Real estate, technology, clean money. You take the rest. Just like that? Just like that. Min-jae studied his brother's face, searching for deception. Why? Tae-jin glanced at Naomi. Because I have something more important to build. 6 months later. The small cafe in Bukchon Hanok village served traditional Korean tea and pastries to tourists and locals alike. Simple, quiet, honest. Naomi worked the counter, her Korean now fluent, her smile genuine. Behind her, through the doorway to the kitchen, Tae-jin managed inventory. He wore jeans and a simple shirt. No suits, no bodyguards, no fear. A customer entered, an elderly woman with sharp eyes and a cane. "Are you the owner?" she asked in Korean. Tae-jin emerged from the back. "Yes. Can I help you?" The woman studied him, then Naomi, then smiled. "I knew your mother. Sarah. In Atlanta. She used to talk about a man in Seoul who had a mark on his wrist. Said he was the only person who ever saw her." Tae-jin's breath caught. "She sent me a letter before she died," the woman continued. "Asked me to visit if I ever came to Korea. To make sure her daughter was okay." Naomi came around the counter, tears in her eyes. "Mrs. Patterson. Hello, child." They embraced, and Tae-jin watched his daughter hold on to a piece of her mother he'd never given her. The woman pulled back, looked at them both, and smiled through her own tears. "She'd be proud, you know. Of what you're building here. Both of you." After she left, Naomi returned to the counter, wiping her eyes. Tae-jin stood beside her, looking out at the traditional houses and modern city beyond. "Do you regret it?" Naomi asked. "Giving up everything?" He thought about power, about fear, about 26 years spent building walls around a heart that had stopped beating the day Sarah left. Then he looked at his daughter, alive and real and choosing to stay. "No," he said. "I regret nothing." Outside, Seoul pulsed with its familiar rhythm. But inside the small cafe, in a quiet corner of an ancient neighborhood, two people who'd found each other across decades and distance were building something new. Not an empire. A family. And this time, they were doing it right. If this story touched something in you, if it made you believe that it's never too late to choose differently, then this channel is for you. Because we tell stories about people who find strength not in power, but in the courage to change. Subscribe, and let's continue this journey together.